Hi, and welcome to Screens in Focus podcast, where we share and connect as we spotlight our favorite shows and movies. I'm Diana, and today we're going to be talking about Cobra Kai Season 5. Grog is joining me today. How are you, Grog?
I'm doing as good as I can on a Sunday morning.
Well, that's awesome. I know. Thank you for being so patient with me. I was running a little bit late.
No worries. I'm
Not usually.
studying. I've been studying up for the podcast.
Awesome. I love it. So, our question of the day, of course, pertains to Cobra Kai. And so, of course, I was Googling things and I'm like, oh, what would be a good question of the day? Things that people really want to know. And so I thought, who is your favorite fighter? And so that is the question of the day. Who is your favorite fighter this season?
Oh, this season.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And do you want my answer now, or are we going to come back to it?
No, I want your answer now.
Oh, okay. Well, I gotta say that I wasn't thinking in terms of this season, but overall, I would say that Robbie is my favorite fighter, only because I actually used to do martial arts back in the 80s. So when I watch the fighting scenes, some of them are really hokey. Like you can tell, like
Yeah.
when Ralph Macchio fights, it's like, it's really staged. And for old guys, they move around pretty good. But
Yeah.
Robbie is actually the best athlete out there, and some of the kicks that he does and the stuff that he does is pretty good. And then Tori too, I think she's very athletic, much more than Samantha, who ends up being the champ, of course.
Yeah.
But those are my kind of two favorite actual fighters.
Those are good ones. And oh man, I really agree with you about Ralph or Daniel LaRusso, Ralph Macchio being staged, although I love his fighting for what it represents and what he brings to it. But this season, I was thinking, I loved seeing Johnny because I just think he's just a crack up. I love watching him fight. But I was actually thinking Miguel was one of my favorite fighters. I like the way he approaches it. I like that I feel that he mixes both Johnny's lessons and Daniel LaRusso's lessons. So for me, watching him was, which was really good, although I felt like he didn't get to fight as much as I wanted to see him fight. And I have to mention Chosen too, because I just think he was such a great addition to Cobra Kai season 5, and I really enjoyed watching him fight. All right, friends out there, let us know what you think. You can leave us a comment on social media, our website, or email at screensinfocus@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you on who your favorite fighter is this season. The links are in the show notes. Okay, so let's get down to season 5 of Cobra Kai, and I'm going to give just a brief recap, and there are spoilers ahead. So we see Miguel go to Mexico to find his father, and Robbie tries to warn Kenny and Tori about Cobra Kai. Sam is on her own journey while creating a bond with her brother Anthony. Tori is working undercover with Kreese, who is in jail. Silver is expanding Cobra Kai and bringing in international senseis. Johnny finds out he's having a baby. Chosen is staying with the LaRussos and is so damn entertaining. And then Daniel is hell-bent on bringing Cobra Kai down, getting both physically and emotionally beaten down. So, Grog, what did you think of the overall season?
Very happy with the season. I enjoyed it a lot, and there was a lot of suspense left over from season 5.
Yeah.
So I really liked the way that they tied up pretty much all the loose ends that were out there. And then I was wondering, like, oh, where do they go from here? Kreese comes back at the end, and it's like, oh, okay, I see. there's got to be a season 6, and I understand that there is a high probability that they're going to have a season 6.
Yeah.
So I just like the way that, with all the different conflicts between the characters, that they kind of brought it all together, and had the kumbaya moments out there that brought the enemies together and exposed Silver for the jackass that he was.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. I think that they did tie up a lot of loose ends. So I really enjoyed that this season. And what I appreciated was that we were able to see the characters evolve and their relationships grow. And I was really happy to see the fight between Chosen and Silver, because I think that's what I was really looking forward to. I think that's what fans out there were looking forward to seeing this showdown. And of course, everybody was anticipating Mike Barnes and Jessica from Karate Kid 3 to come back. So I thought that the way they brought them in was really well done. And I always love the music. And I think Johnny is so damn funny. And I just love his one-liners. So I really appreciated all of that this season. So in the beginning, we see, one of the cliffhangers was when Miguel left the All Valley tournament and he leaves to go find his father, and we see him we see him on the bus and he takes off. So I like that they started off with that. So it was basically right where it left off from season 4. And so we see Miguel go to Mexico because he wants to find his father. I was anticipating a lot going into that storyline. So what did you think about his encounter and that whole trip to Mexico?
The best part for me was when they basically, kind of rescued him, and brought him back, and Miguel and Robbie had, their conflict, and just kind of brought them together. So, and then also the fact that Robbie was going on the road with his dad, Johnny. And
Yeah.
you're right, Johnny is just, he steals every scene. He's just hilarious.
Yeah.
Just such a throwback, old school character. And you just, he's like the lovable loser. You gotta love that guy.
Gotta.
But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting diversion, in that plot line, in terms of Miguel, trying to figure out who he is, and, where his loyalties are going to be with regard to his family. And I suppose that would be, the next kind of season 6 plot line to think about is, when Carmen has the baby, and now the two brothers or stepbrothers are, you know, together. Like, where does it progress from there?
Yeah. I was actually expecting more to happen with Miguel in Mexico. I was assuming, okay, Johnny's going to go. And I thought it was great that he brought Robbie with him. And I thought it was great to see both of them bond over that. And I liked how Robbie didn't realize why he was going. And then because he wouldn't have gone, right? So I thought it was kind of cool how Johnny didn't really reveal to Robbie what they were going to do, just a road trip, and then sneaking it in there. Oh, we're going to go save Miguel. So I thought that was nice to see that relationship, because we haven't seen that relationship. And one of the things that I kept saying in the past and all the other seasons was that I felt that Johnny was being a really good father figure to Miguel, but I felt that he was lacking in being a father figure to Robbie, his own son. And so I kept saying, why isn't he looking for him? Why isn't he going to find him? And so I felt like he actually did it this season. He was actually being a really good father to his son, Robbie. And so I really appreciated seeing those two bond. And then in watching Miguel in Mexico and finding out about his father, I just thought, yeah, his father was a bad guy, but I thought he was going to be worse. I thought the cartel might be brought in. I thought, oh my gosh, they're all going to have to fight to get out of the grips of these people. And so I thought that they were all three going to have to fight their way out, but it didn't quite happen like that. But they did have some funny scenes in there with, how their car got towed away and they had to have that pepper eating contest to win the money back to get their car out of storage. I thought that was hilarious. And how they use that pepper, it was silly, but how they use that pepper when they were at the it was at the MMA fighting rink. I don't know what that was particularly, that Hector owned that place, but I just
Oh, yeah. I'd
yeah,
forgotten about that. Yeah, it was so, I don't know. It's like a lot of stuff in this show that's so contrived and kind of
right.
stupid that you just have to laugh. That's the best type
I
of
know.
entertainment. It's predictable, in some ways and juvenile, but what else do you expect?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I liked it at the very end, of course, when Miguel realizes that his father isn't who he thinks he is and turns around to leave. And of course, Johnny's there. And of course, I always love the sappy moments when everybody hugs and they reunite and everything is good. And I don't know, I just really appreciate their relationship between Miguel and Johnny. And also Robbie witnessing that and seeing that connection and not being jealous about it, accepting that for what it is. And, for all of them just moving ahead in their relationship. So I really like that. And in saying that, wait a minute, I do want to say one more thing about their trip to Mexico. The Australian and the other guys on the beach. That was so, again, you're right when you said, it's kind of cheesy. They throw these things that are contrived in there. And so that's what happened there too, right? But it was pretty hilarious, right? So those guys had stolen Miguel's money and his bag and everything. And then here we go. We see Johnny and Robbie meet up with the same guys. And of course, they get to fight together. So that was another bonding experience, right? Watching them fight together. But in those relationships, we see a lot of other relationships move forward. And that's what I noticed in this season. I felt like finally so many relationships moved forward. So many that had, repeatedly had issues through, 1 through 4. So what did you think about any of the relationships in this season?
I gotta say that I don't really think too much about the relationships that deeply, and the way the relationship shifted throughout all the seasons. At one point, Miguel was Samantha's boyfriend, and then Robbie was her
Yeah.
boyfriend, and then they were both with Tori. And then at the end,
Yeah.
they kind of end up back, Miguel and Sam and Tori and Robbie, they kiss at the end. So yeah, I don't know how else they want to play that, with Robbie kind of being in some ways having two dads. Daniel kind of turns into his dad for a time, and then Johnny ends up being his dad, which he should have been to begin with. So it's interesting how they play those roles and those characters, and how they kind of have the tension between them, and it's continually shifting. You just
Yeah.
don't know what to expect from season to season. At one point they're enemies, but then you ultimately expect them to be friends. That's what you're waiting for as a fan, is
Right.
is like, these, they want to kill each other, but then at the end it's like, yeah, but they're fighting for the Miyagi verse. They all adapt Mr. Miyagi's philosophy, and that's what you want them to do. Oh yeah. So
Just pointing to my shirt that says Miyagi-Do, that's all. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So yeah, I mean, that whole thing about martial arts is that, it's supposed to be self-defense. And the fact that Cobra Kai is all about, crushing your enemy and, destroying people and just doing whatever it takes to to win and no honor. And I don't know any, martial arts systems that teach that outside, I mean, of traditional martial arts. I mean, if you look at what goes on with stuff like MMA and that type of stuff, where, there's a lot of money involved and it's not about so much about honor, it is about just, trying to just cripple the other person. And the bloodlust that we have in our world for watching, man's inhumanity to man is just so prevalent that I don't think people really think about it. But having studied martial arts, well, that's what it's all about. It's supposed to be about self-defense, and
Yeah.
people that take martial arts thinking that they're going to, become some superhero or something, or it's going to help them to get over on people some way, to if they're going to use it to bully people. The universe kind of has a way of bringing those people back to earth, and I think that's what we see in Cobra Kai, is that the bad systems, the good wins out over evil. So that's what you expect out of Cobra Kai, out of the Karate Kid.
Yeah. I love that. I did not know you had done some martial arts. We'll have to talk about that further at another time because I'm interested in knowing more about that. So, with the relationships for me, I was really happy to see so much individual growth that gave way to each of them reacting differently. That's what I really noticed, because just even with Daniel and Johnny, they were always at odds the last 4 seasons, of course, because that's what it's all about, right? That's what we've been watching. That's why we first tuned in. And so we could see both their sides, and we could see both of them being stubborn. And so even though in the past seasons we've seen them at odds, and then they make up, and then they're at odds again, and then they make up, but then they're kind of like giving each other the side eye. I really felt like this season there was a really big breakthrough. And I just saw them each react differently. They just did. They finally get it. And so we had been waiting for it last season. We talked about it. And so I was really happy to see this season that they have moved on, because that's what you want people to do. And it's like when you keep seeing the same thing circle around and around, you're like, okay, already, are you going to have any forward movement? So I was really happy to see that they reacted differently. And I also feel that happened with Robbie and Miguel. And what I did like was that they still did have tension throughout the season, but it wasn't until they actually fought it out, which I loved that moment. And I think I might be jumping ahead of myself at this time. I just felt like that was what they needed. And I was glad that Johnny kept trying to get at both of them, because he loves them both, right? He loves Robbie, that's his son, but he also loves Miguel. That is the son of his baby mama, right? Of Carmen. That's Carmen's son. So so I really appreciated those relationships. And of course, toward the end there, we also see with Sam and Tori, because we also see a shift in Tori this season, because I haven't really liked Tori that much, because she's just always been just out for herself, and just that look that she always gives. And so now we finally see her, because she won the All Valley, and then she realizes she really didn't win the All Valley when she saw that the referee was paid off by Silver at the end of last season. And so we see a shift in her too. So I loved seeing all these relationships and how their individual growth has helped to shape them. So that's what I thought was really cool with them.
I concur. I would say that, the relationship with Miguel and Robbie, with all the tension that they had, and then you think about, the jealousies that exist when you start adding a stepson or a stepfather, or stepmother to relationship. And so, yeah, Johnny is more Miguel's dad in all the other seasons than he is
Right.
Robbie's, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the fight that they had together that was contrived by Johnny was just brilliant. And,
Yeah.
I have to say that as a dad, when, your kids fight, I think, the first impulse is to like, you just want to break them up, because
Yeah.
you don't want them to
Yeah.
get hurt. But
Yeah.
then when they're always fighting and, you can't stop it, then I have to admit that there was one time when my two sons, and they're very close in age, 1 year apart, and this is actually after they had been studying martial arts too, because our whole family did martial arts. And so I want to say they were like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years old. And they started fighting. And then they kind of like looked at me like, like I just watched them, for the first time, like, okay, just go ahead, and they do it. I could see them like looking at me like, are you going to stop this, Dad? And I was like, no, I'm, like, you guys want to fight? Go ahead. And Hunter, my oldest son, being so much bigger than Tyler, I was kind of worried about the fact that he was going to hurt his little brother. But Tyler had some interesting, skills himself that he had adapted with speed, and so he was faster than
Ah,
Hunter. And so
yeah.
they really got into it, and then Hunter grabbed him and like had him pinned down. His head was pinned in like this. And all of a sudden Hunter starts screaming because Tyler bit him in the stomach. And Hunter still has a
Oh
scar on
my
his
God.
stomach to this day from
No,
his
really?
brother's teeth.
Wow.
So I really identified with that scene because, it's like you don't want your kids to be hurt, but then,
Yeah.
how do you learn to stop being violent? If you have violent tendencies and people, I think martial arts is a great thing for people who have like anger management issues and think that they're,
Yeah.
really badass people. It's a very humbling experience, no matter how, badass you are. And if you go into competition, you're always going to find out that there's somebody else out there that can like kick your ass.
Yeah.
And so it makes you respect them. And if you like, you think about some of the people that do study martial arts, and I look at a character like Hawk, who had
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the cleft lip, and was all the interesting hair and stuff. And then Dimitri too, the kind of geeky guy that was
Yeah.
always expected to get his butt kicked, but then he, developed some moxie in the end too. So that's what I kind of got out of the show, is how the characters who were bullies in some way, or just dweebs, whatever you want to call them, just and then
Mm-hmm.
how martial arts kind of shaped their character. And I think season 6, we've got to see where we go with Kenny, because we didn't get to tie off enough loose ends with him. But one other thing I want to talk about is the tension between Sam and Tori, because that was an ongoing thing. And Tori was always a really good villain who you kind of didn't want to root for. But then Sam was, I don't know, I thought she was kind of bratty too, at the beginning,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we had that with her. And then you always thought that Sam and Tori would, kind of bury the hatchet, but it seemed like one of them was always sabotaging that possibility
Mm-hmm.
until the end, where we saw that, oh, okay, that I was really expecting when Tori told Sam that, the fight had been fixed.
Right.
I thought that was going to blow up, and it didn't, and they ended up, getting along. So that was interesting how they tied all that stuff up.
Yeah. Well, at first it didn't. Sam was fighting her after she found out,
Hmm.
right? Because she's like, "Oh, you didn't say anything, and you know what my dad went through and my family went through, and you didn't speak up." And so I was actually surprised that she got mad, but then I guess that it seemed like an honest reaction also. And then it took for Miguel to tell her, how are you going to react to this? You know this now. She didn't have to tell you. Do you know how hard that was for her to tell you? And it took Sam to absorb that and then change how she was going to react this time. So I liked how they handled it because she was mad at first at Tori, and then she came around, and that's when they all decided to work together, which I loved. See, I love that. See how important all these relationships are. They are just also cool. And I'm so glad that you brought up Eli and Dimitri because I love their relationship too. I really like them both. They're a crack up. And also you were bringing up your own experience and with the kids, and I love that they each have their own strength, right? And that is representative of what Cobra Kai shows us, right? Like some people are bigger, and like even Silver, right? He towers over everybody and he's always beating them up. And I'm thinking, damn it, because he's pretty good, right? I'm like, that damn Silver one, he's pretty good at it. And then he's bigger. So you can just, he's looking down at everybody he talks to. And so anyway, when you were talking about the strengths of your kids and how you use different things to adapt so that something that you may think is a weakness, it really isn't. If you use it correctly or you know how to use it, it becomes the strength. And so that actually happened with Kenny, right? In Cobra Kai, because he's quick because he's little. He's really quick. And that is one of his strengths, is that he is really fast. And even seeing him fight, I'm like, damn, that Kenny is fast. So in saying that, let's talk about Cobra Kai training and Silver and Kreese and all of that. What do you think about the whole Cobra Kai world?
Interesting. You have to have discipline when you do martial arts, but not having sportsmanship is just, I can't even imagine it. Who would teach violence? I mean, I guess like if you think about what they teach people in the military, if you're in special forces or something like that, then
Mhm.
I guess they have their code of honor that they're supposed to stick to, but then they're also teaching people to kill and maim. I mean, that's the objective of martial arts, is if you're trying to defend yourself, is to use as much force as necessary to extricate yourself from whatever conflict you're in. But then at some point, the question becomes, well, is it life or death? Like, if I don't throw this technique to the full force that it needs to be thrown at, what's the point? I mean, for example, if you're a smaller person and someone attacks you, and maybe they have more skills than you too. So, in martial arts, you have some really, basic targets that you shoot for. So, one would be the knee if you want to take somebody out so they can't come after you.
Mhm.
The groin is always a good target if you want to, disable them and maybe leave some permanent damage. The solar plexus, another good target, just to stop the person from breathing. And then there's the throat if you want to do really some heavy damage and risk killing the person. And then the eyeball is always a good target too. So, those are the things that you get taught in martial arts. Like you have, a weapon, which is, either like a kick, a punch, an eye jab, a block. You have a target, if you're got to throw that weapon, where are you aiming at? And then you have accuracy and speed. And those are the elements that you teach people in martial arts, is, to kind of learn all those different techniques. And then when you're in an actual situation where you're fighting, when you're starting out at first, you just kind of just chipping along doing, punch, punch, kick, kick. But then once you get get some time under your belt in terms of studying martial arts, and you get fluidity. And just like any sport, you're not thinking about it, you're reacting. All the training that you've done is now, just kind of, you're just in the moment, you're not thinking about it. And so when you look at what they're trying to teach within both schools of Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do, they're teaching those elements, but Miyagi-Do is about peace, and
Right.
and helping people. And Cobra Kai is just about war, and winning at all cost. So that's the conflict that I really enjoy in Cobra Kai, is again, the forces of good versus evil.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I like my lesson. I like my lesson because I've never taken martial arts. And I thought, oh, kick him there. Yeah, you're right. And oh, that's good to know. And so I love that. I love that rundown. Thanks, Grog, for that. So, since I don't know any of those things, in thinking about Cobra Kai, I'm thinking about Kreese because of course, Johnny had Cobra Kai first, and then it came over to Kreese, and now it's with Silver. But thinking about Kreese, he's in jail now. And so, and of course, we see him there and trying to adapt there, which he does actually pretty well there. Actually, I loved watching him fight the other inmates and how they were showing his younger self. I thought that was brilliant. I'm thinking, oh, I love this, right? Because we've seen him fight in Cobra Kai in the earlier seasons, and you're like, okay, that's not him, right? Because you could see they're trying to make it look like him, but he's not that agile when he walks around. And it's, his stand-in when he is, or a stunt double when he's fighting. And I thought, this looks fake, right? So I loved that they put his younger version in. I thought that was such a good idea. And so because it shows basically how we see ourselves, right? How we never see ourselves aging. We see ourselves how we perceive ourselves, and usually it's our younger selves. So I just love that we saw that, and that we saw him getting along in prison and figuring out his ways and using his strengths to figure out his way out of there, and how he decides to escape. So I loved seeing Kreese in that way. I like that they kept revisiting him in jail until the end when we see him finally escape. So I really liked that part. And I also liked in Cobra Kai seeing Tori and Devin, because, and I couldn't remember, I watched it the first time and then I went and rewatched it the second time. But before I rewatched it the second time, I kept thinking to myself, how did Devin get to Cobra Kai? Because she was part of Eagle Fang, right? It was Johnny's student. And so, and then I saw it was because Silver went and took over Topanga Karate, and she was one of the students there. Because, of course, here we see Silver buying everything out. He has all this money, he has all this power because he has taken over Cobra Kai, and he's paying off people. He's paying off Stingray. He's paying off the refs. He's bringing in these international senseis. And so Tori is there with Devin. And I like that we get to see, like I said, we get to see Tori in a different light. We get to see Tori being the mentor this time, because once you start caring for somebody else, you change. It's not just about you. You're not just being selfish and living, for yourself and how you want to do things. All of a sudden you take somebody under your wing, and it kind of gives you, or it can, right? You can go one way or the other. But in this case, it gave Tori a new perspective, and it shifted because here she's trying to care for Devin, this new female student that is there in front of her, which to me kind of mirrored how Robbie and Kenny are, because Robbie sees the things that are wrong in Cobra Kai once he starts seeing Kenny take in all of those Cobra Kai lessons and techniques. And so Robbie starts to see, oh, this isn't this isn't how, what I've learned, because he did spend his time, I'm talking about Robbie for a second here. He did spend his time with Daniel LaRusso, learning the Miyagi-Do ways. And so anyway, so with Tori and with Devin, I really liked seeing that relationship between these two women. I'm glad that they highlighted that and they, showed that aspect of it. And I loved, and I'm jumping ahead, I loved at the end when you see their relationship and how she keeps trying to get through to, through to Devin. But Devin was an Eagle Fang student. And so I thought it was interesting that I'm glad she didn't side with Cobra Kai and that she found her way back over to this group with Miyagi-Do and everybody else that was there at the end. So I just thought it was cool to watch those characters and all of that at Cobra Kai. I think it was good for us to see that side.
Yeah, I suppose that's part of the formula that the writers of the show have, where, you're introduced to a character and you don't like them. And then as their kind of journey goes along and martial arts influences their lives in, bad ways, good ways, whatever. And you then, like with Torian and Devin, yeah, you see that relationship kind of happen. And Tori is, person, she's a villainess throughout most of the series. And then you also see the same type of plot line develop with Amanda and Tori, because Amanda like looks at her like, oh, this is, this bitch is trying to beat up my baby girl,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so she tries to intercede, but then she finds out a little bit
Right.
about Tori's life circumstances, that she, comes from the wrong side of the tracks and has a disabled mom, and
Yeah.
she's trying to care for her, and it's like, oh, then you get this whole different sympathy for the character that you didn't like, which
Right.
which I guess is kind of what you really get with Johnny. You
Yeah.
see him in the first movie, and then you're just like, when he becomes such a great character in this series. Like, he really is. I probably wouldn't watch the show if it wasn't for Johnny. I mean, he's just got all the great one liners, and then just the whole way he's still living in the past, in the 80s. And
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
love
what
that.
kind of wrote me in, because I saw I remember I saw the first Karate Kid movie, and I got to say, I wasn't that big of a fan. I saw that, and I saw Karate Kid 2, and I don't think I saw Karate Kid 3. So I just wasn't a fan of the series. And then when I heard about the series, I really was like, I didn't want to watch it. My son told us about it, and we were just like, just happened to watch it one night on Netflix. And like, from episode 1, I was just so hooked, just because of all the throwback stuff to the 80s that was in there, and the music, and then the way they set things up with, a generational kind of
Yeah.
struggles or comparisons about, Johnny doesn't even have like a cell phone, or he doesn't, he's still got like a flip
Yeah.
phone. He doesn't have any, ability to manage technology. He's just such a numbskull, and that just cracks me up. So, but the relationship stuff, yeah, that kind of stuff is it's interesting how they turn your head around. Like, at one season you're rooting for one character, but then by the end of the season 5, you're rooting for that character, that you didn't like earlier. So it's good writing.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I love that you brought that stuff up about the original. So I was a Karate Kid 1 fan, the first one, and then I saw the second one. It was good. And I actually did not see the third one until recently, until after I had seen season 4 of Cobra Kai, because I knew they were going to bring people in and I wanted to see the movie. So I did go see it. I'm glad I saw it for the purposes of seeing this season, and also about Terry Silver, because you get to see the movie and how all these characters affect Daniel. So I'm glad I saw it for that reason. Karate Kid 3 is like, you know, it's it's not my favorite, but I'm glad I watched it. But I do appreciate the first 2, the Karate Kid movies. And me too. When I first saw Cobra Kai, I saw it on YouTube Red because that's where it premiered. I listened to a podcast and I heard Sholo, who plays Miguel, and I heard him on a podcast, and something drove me to wanna watch it, and I thought, "Oh, I can watch a series on YouTube? This is so bizarre." So I went and watched it. I was totally hooked, and I thought, "This is just so great." And then we were on a road trip, and I can't remember why we couldn't watch TV, but it was the family on a road trip, and I put it on, and I got the boys. I can't remember if I got the boys to watch it YouTube or Netflix, but anyway, either one, they also love the show. And so it's just kind of cool. And I think it's because it is multi-generational, because if you don't appreciate Johnny and Daniel, you appreciate the younger generation in that. And so I think it's great. I just love that part. And even if you are older than, Daniel and those characters, you can watch it because of Crease and that, age range that watches this. Even the grandma is so funny. When she came in to play a part in Johnny's, you know how Johnny had made up his apartment to look like, what was that? Like a Western environment. And he brings her in with some lines. I thought that was hysterical. So the grandma is funny too. But I do like that this lends itself to so many generations. And also, don't you love just seeing what happens to people 30 years down the line? Because if you watched it originally, you have, ridden that same train to get here to where you are today. So it's kind of cool to see, from where they are and where they are now. So I find that very cool and I love that. So thanks for bringing that up. And in talking about Johnny, let's talk about the other characters that are in this season. So I'm going to just name them out and you just tell me briefly what you think about them. So Kenny, who is the Cobra Kai bully.
Not a major character. I guess that's something they're going to develop. But the fact that he started off as, being bullied, and then he learns martial arts and becomes a bully and gets back on Anthony, who was, his original bully. And that's one of the storylines that it's kind of difficult to watch, is that Daniel is supposed to be this successful businessman and such a I wouldn't say humble character, but at least good intentions, and then his son is just such a little brat, and so the way they develop that tension with Anthony and Kenny was almost kind of needed. You needed Anthony to have his villain,
Yeah.
so that's his purpose. But I suppose that'll be one of the, the plot lines going forward, is how do they, you know, tie up that relationship between those two guys.
I'm actually looking forward to that. I thought that was going to happen this season. I thought that Anthony was going to train. I know it's been not enough time, but I thought Anthony was going to train and have to fight Kenny. And I was like anticipating that, but I could see that it wasn't going that. But at this point, I think it might, I don't know, because we don't know where Kenny is at this point in his life. We'll see where that goes. But I want to say about Kenny that when he first came on in season 4, I liked him. And then all of a sudden he quickly became the bully after being bullied. And I think he's been a great character. I don't like him as the bully, but I really appreciate him as an actor because I think he's really good. And I think he's fast and he's quick and he's good at martial arts too. He's very athletic. So and I think he's needed, right? Because you always need someone to be the bully or play that role. Okay, so Chosen. What do you think of Chosen? So Chosen is the one person who was in Karate Kid 2, the bad guy, the villain back then, and now he's been reunited with Daniel. Tell me what you think of Chosen.
You gotta love Chosen, kind of again, old school guy, kind of grown up, learned his lessons, and in some ways probably, his lessons are better than Daniel's, especially at the end where the Miyagi-Do was facing superior numbers and better fighters, and all the Kreese's schools had combined, and then at the very end when they're trying to expose Silver on the video program, and they have to all form a wall around
Yeah.
Anthony so that he can upload the video, and Anthony is actually the guy who one of the weakest people in the dojo, but and I never really sympathized with him because he's just started off as like this kid's like the prototypical idiot. He doesn't work out, just wants to sit around playing video games all day, lazy and all that stuff. But then he uses his mind, to kind of become the leader of the dojo to help them get through that situation. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop him. Is he gonna rise up and follow in his father's footsteps, and what issues is he going to have going forward with his character development?
I know, I can't wait. I actually think Anthony is really good with all of his reaction shots. Every time they show him, I love his reaction. He's just really good at them. He's just has an expressive face. So I love seeing that. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because yeah, he was the one who figured out when Chosen had given them the task of the eggs. It was him that figured out what they needed to do. And then of course he uses it here also. And as you were saying earlier, using your strengths, right? Because yeah, maybe he's not the strongest fighter, but he can use what he has, which is what Dimitri does too. Okay, so Chosen, for me, Chosen was the best addition to season 5. I love Chosen. I had no idea how much I would love this character because he's such a good fighter and he brings in all the teachings of Miyagi-Do, which I love. And then his voice, he just cracks me up when he's teaching the kids, and he's got this little, this low grovelly voice. I just love it when he's teaching them. So I love him. I just when he was drunk, oh my gosh, so many things I just love about him. When he tells them when Mike Barnes had taken the limo and taken them to that area and they all get out. They all want to go kill Silver and Daniel's trying to convince them not to. And Mike Barnes wants to do it and Johnny wants to do it. And Daniel turns to Chosen and says, "Help me out here." Chosen says, "I've got his address." I'm like, "Oh my God." And then they all take off. But yeah, I just think Chosen is so funny, so great. I love that they brought him back. And look at the character he was in Karate Kid 2. He was this terrible villain, but I just love how his character has evolved and just everything that he's learned and trying to bring back honor to his name and all of that. I just love Chosen. He's probably my favorite character this season.
Yeah, he's probably the most stoic character in the whole show. But then it's just so funny when they put them in the back of a limo, him and Johnny and Daniel, and they're whatever they're singing, was it Eye of the Tiger or whatever? They're
Oh,
just wasted.
yeah.
And how
Yeah.
they go out and they're celebrating, Carmen and Johnny's, I don't know what it was, the baby or their engagement
The
announcement. Yeah.
announcement of the baby, yeah.
Yeah. And they're just, just getting ripped in the club, and, it's kind of like,
Love it.
as a kind of a old school person where I am in life, I guess, coming up on 60, and you still want to be kind of out there having fun, and doing stuff. And like for me, I'm a basketball player. That's kind of like I don't know, that's how I manage my kind of warrior spirit, I guess, is just going out there and still battling on the basketball court. And it's really painful at this age the next day when you wake up and you've been running and bumping
Ah,
into people. I just sprained my finger the other day, my guitar finger, one of my fingers.
ah,
So I was like,
man.
geez, I got to deal with this stuff. But yeah, it's funny when you see them out there and these old guys that are, our age, I guess, that are, fighting and still, doing stuff you wouldn't expect from them,
Yeah.
So ultimately I guess they're good role models in that way.
Yeah. Certainly are. Okay, so do you have any thoughts on Mike Barnes? So Mike Barnes, you had mentioned you didn't see Karate Kid 3, but he was one of Silver's students who, gets to Daniel. And so in here, we saw him as the furniture store owner. So did you have any thoughts on Mike Barnes?
Yeah, and I didn't even know his relevance in the Karate Kid series when they brought him in, and just I kind of had to extrapolate a little bit. They
Yeah.
brought in enough to make you understand who he was, where he fit in, and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I guess they have to bring in as many people from the past. I mean, that's
Yeah.
their objective. Is to
Yeah.
I would imagine that if they had, oh gosh, what was Mr. Miyagi, the actor Pat?
Rita.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh.
it would have been great if he was still alive. They could have brought
Live.
him
I
back
know. I
back into
know.
it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
Through
mean,
flashbacks. Through
yeah,
flashbacks, they
but they
tried.
had to bring Mike Barnes in, I guess, but, it was just kind of such a small kind of little branch that they went down, but, personally, they can cut off that branch. I don't need him going forward for season 6.
Yeah. I just like seeing characters come back. Like you said, I think it just ties it all in. I think it's what people appreciate seeing. Mark Barnes wasn't a great guy, but again, we get to see someone who has evolved and we get to see where they're at now. And during this season, Daniel wasn't sure who he was going to be confronted with because he remembered the way Mike Barnes was back in the day. Same thing with Johnny, right? He thinks Johnny hasn't changed from their high school days when season 1 started. So now in this, he doesn't know what to expect when he is confronted with him, but he's a guy who is just living his life, has a wife, has a family, has this place that gets burnt down. Everything that he owns was, in this furniture, that's how he made his living. And here, Silver, with all his money and everything else, burns it down. So, we see him, as part of the group. And I felt like at least it helped us move the story forward, right? Because it was somebody else. You bring in somebody else, and of course, antagonizes Silver because he keeps getting more irritated with Daniel. Like, you keep trying to reach out to these other people and get to me. And so that just fuels the fire for Silver. So in that regard, I think that Mike Barnes character was pretty good for coming back and playing that role in that way. And we also see Jessica, who was also in Karate Kid 3, and she was a friend to Daniel. So she was there to witness what Silver and Mike Barnes did to him. So, and she was his friend. There was no love interest there so much. She was just a friend of his in a Karate Kid 3. So, and of course, everybody speculated that she would be in Cobra Kai season 5, which she was. She ended up being Amanda's cousin, and she's the one who introduced Daniel and Amanda together. That's how they brought her character in. So I just thought that was kind of cool. And I love that I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Instead of letting you talk, I just went right into it, Grog. Sorry about that.
No, you go. That's you
So,
went down to, it's a rabbit hole that I kind of probably wasn't prepared for.
but I love that she's able to, explain the situation to Amanda, who has no idea because she's tired of Daniel fighting with Cobra Kai and with Silver and all of that. How it's breaking apart their family and, it's consumed him. But I'm so happy that she's there to validate what Daniel went through because she saw what, he went through. And yeah, when they were trying to get the bonsai trees, it was her and Daniel on the side of the ledge near the ocean. They're trying to get the bonsai trees off the cliff. And this group Mike Barnes comes, and they and his group come and leave them hanging. Basically, they actually leave them hanging. I think they take the ropes and everything. So they have to figure out, how to get out of that. So they leave them in dire situations. So she's able to let Amanda know what has happened in the past. So I really like that. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on Amanda because I'm just
I
kind of
gotta
saying
say,
everything.
not seeing Karate Kid 3, because
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about, right? Is that Karate Kid 3 where that
Yeah,
happened?
that's what happened in there, but her role here
Yeah.
in giving Amanda, I guess, an update on what that was.
Yeah. I gotta say, I just, I like Cobra Kai, the series, way more than I like the Karate Kid
Ah,
movie series, just because, back in the 80s when they made Karate Kid, that was, we were living that kind of life
right,
ourselves. We didn't
right.
have cell phones. We didn't have all the information of the entire world, right there in our fingertips. And then flash forward, what, almost 40 years, and now it's like that's what is interesting to me, is to see how everything has changed. And so, like, the like one of the funniest lines that they pursue is Johnny, becoming an Uber driver or whatever, or a
Ah, yeah,
DoorDash, and he
yeah,
can't understand why it's not okay for him to, you know, eat people's food before he gives it to them, and like, the people kind of come stumbling out of the car after he drove them somewhere, like, yeah,
yeah,
make sure you give me 5 stars,
yeah.
so that's that kind of humor, I think, is
Oh
what
God.
I really identify the most with. So
Yeah.
so they got to bring these characters back, I guess. Just, I don't know if there are a lot of, like, long-term Karate Kid fans out there that really, kind of really love that stuff. I mean,
They do. No, there are.
oh, okay.
100%. There
Wow.
is. Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
there's groups.
my apologies to any of them that might be watching right now and wondering why this guy's talking about their show that I don't even care about. But no, it's just, hey, I love the series, and
Yeah,
and I think that you don't even it doesn't matter if you ever saw any of the Karate Kid movies. If you
yeah,
just kind of watch the show from episode 1, you'll like it. And then maybe you might want to go back and watch the movies and see
yeah.
what it's about. But I'll tell you, I'm probably never going to watch Karate Kid 3 unless I'm flipping through the channels
Right.
one day and I find it, but other than that, I'm just, I'm going to be a
You're
fan of
good.
the series. But I got to say, like, they tied stuff up so well in seasons 5. And you think about the storylines that they're going to project from there. And I honestly can say, I'm not sure if I'm going to watch season 6.
You'll
We'll
watch it.
see. Well,
You'll
I'll
watch
probably
it.
just watch it for Johnny. That's it. I'll do it for Johnny.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what about Amanda? Do you have any thoughts on Amanda? That is Daniel's wife.
She's a great character, and you got to appreciate her. She's a mom, and at the end, I forget, did she start studying martial arts too? Or
No,
no, she didn't.
when she
But she
says,
was in the bar fight. She gets in a bar fight with her old high school rivals, and
yeah,
then Samantha comes and bails her out,
right.
and she's so happy, that, now, oh, my daughter just, kicked this lady's butt, you know. So that was
Yeah,
interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's just, she's kind of a necessary character for Daniel, that he's, grown up to be this successful auto dealership, and she's a big part of it, and she's his partner, and they're
yeah,
trying to raise their kids, and neither one of their kids is involved in martial arts at all in season 1. And then it's like, okay, and take Samantha under his wing, and eventually Anthony comes in, and she's the realist in it. She's like looking at all this stuff like, this is just all so childish, and these rivalries you have, but
yeah.
then you see her get caught up in it herself,
Yes, she
you know
does. Yes.
which is,
Yeah.
I think, again, it's the writing in the show
Hmm.
is great, because it shows that irony of that, the person that is, trying to tell everybody how to behave, and then falls off her own platform and becomes, embroiled in it. So yeah, it's just
Yeah.
great writing.
Yeah. I really liked it when Amanda brought Daniel to the Miyagi-Do room. I was actually pretty moved by that. I think I had tears just because anytime anything relates to Miyagi-Do, actually Mr. Miyagi, when they actually show that and they play that music, that flute, I believe it's a flute. I don't know exactly what instrument it is, but when they play that music and Daniel talks about what Mr. Miyagi meant to him and the lessons that he learned through him, it just moves me. And I just was so happy that she had him go into that room. And for him, I feel like for Daniel, he always needs to be centered with the lessons. Like he may stray, he may get mad, he gets hot headed, but when he comes back to his lessons or something that Mr. Miyagi taught him, it just balances him and centers him all over again. So I really appreciated that Amanda did that for him. And then what about Carmen? I mean, she is pregnant now. So that we know that's going to be something big in the next season. And that I feel was instrumental for Johnny just making this pivotal change in his whole life because now he has a second chance and is going to you know, be a different type of person. But do you have any thoughts on her and her what about her dream? That was hysterical, I thought. It was cheesy, 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 but I thought it was funny.
I forget the dream. What was it?
It was the Top Gun dream where they show her the episode opens up and water is going all over the place and she goes to the door to get Johnny's help and when the door opens, Johnny's in the whole Maverick attire like, he's naval fighter. Did you not? Yeah, that part where he's all in the getup, so it's all Top Gun. Top Gun song starts to play, and then you see Johnny playing volleyball with the sunglasses on with Miguel, and she's over by the side all dressed up with the baby. And it was just funny. I'm sorry. It was just such a
That's
throwback to
funny. How
the
can I
80s.
watch? I just watched this whole series and I gotta say, I don't even hardly remember that at all.
Oh
But
my god, it was so cheesy because she wakes up and then she wakes up because you're like, "This is a dream," because it was so cheesy.
yeah.
But you knew the throwback to Top Gun. You're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so hilarious." And and so then she wakes up and he's and he rolls over to her and she's like, "I just had the best dream."
Yeah, I
Oh
kind
my
of look
god.
at that her, she's Miguel's mom,
Yeah,
and so it's kind of a surprise to Miguel that, Johnny's dating, his mom, and they kind of like hide it originally. And yeah, that's a storyline that, you know, you like to see. Like she's the one that comes in and Johnny has been so bad in relationships throughout his whole life and, can't hold down a relationship, can't hold down a job, he's just so selfish. And then you almost expect him to bail on that relationship too some way, but of course he doesn't, does the right thing. So yeah, a necessary character for Johnny's development.
yeah. Okay, so the last character I'm gonna bring up is Stingray, and, Stingray is the one that Silver beat up and gets him to, admit to false accusations and gets Kreese in jail. So do you have any thoughts on Stingray?
Yeah, pretty, minor role, but just the character he is, the old guy, wanting to hang around with the kids, he's the guy that never grew up himself
Right.
and just thinks he's just this badass. And then you find out that he's into what is it, Dungeons and Dragons or whatever.
Yeah.
That's, where he comes from. But yeah, not a very likable character. But then finally at the end, he flips a switch and becomes someone you like. I don't think they
Yeah.
had to do that. I think they should have kept him as, like an evil character. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, yeah. I was glad that they brought him back in, and yeah, I guess you're right. He could have gone either way, right? He could have been continued to be sort of a villain. I don't know. He was just he just can be a little bit he's on the borderline of being creepy hanging out with these young kids, but it's because he wants to be a part of them. So I did appreciate him finally saying, what it is. He just wants to be a part of the group, just be somebody.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated that they showed that aspect of him. And I like Stingray. That actor is so good. I saw him, side note, I saw him in Blackbird. Oh my God, where he played this creepy serial killer. He was so good in it. It's really good. Anybody, you can tune into Apple TV to watch that. Blackbird with
Yeah.
Taron Egerton. I don't know if you've seen that, Grog, but
Have not seen
oh,
it
it's
now.
really good. It's a really good movie. Anyway, but Stingray the actor plays a totally different role, but he's so good in this. And actually, after seeing that and coming back to this, I had such a bigger appreciation for this actor. And I have seen him in other things, but after seeing that, I'm like, man, you're good, Stingray. I just like his character, and I'm glad they brought him in. And he's been in all. I don't think he was in season one. Now I can't even remember when he was introduced, but I do love his character. So I think he's a great addition, and I'm glad that they brought him back.
Yeah. I would say that he actually, on retrospect, he is probably one of the better actors in
Yeah.
the series because I mean, let's face it, Ralph Macchio. I mean, not, one of your Hollywood A-listers, and so, they bring in these people that are decent actors, probably better than the original cast. And the acting overall in the series is probably not that great. I mean, to me, it's the writing and the comedy that is, the stuff that got me, hooked on it. Just that, when I watch, TV a lot and I'm watching, a show that's supposed to be funny, and then I find myself like not laughing. Like, I could watch a whole
Ah,
show and it's like you're expecting to see, get some chuckles and you don't. And then you watch this show and it's all of a sudden like I'm just, belly laughing, like just the physical comedy, the raunchiness of it all, the way that they push the boundaries of what's
yeah,
socially acceptable.
yeah.
It's fun to watch. And
It
that's why I like this series.
it is fun to watch. Okay, so let's talk about the ending. And so I'm just going to kind of quickly recap the last 3 episodes. So in episode 8, Sekai Takai, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, that representative arrives and the lead guy is Gunther, and he agrees to see both dojos, impressed by both, decides to have them fight. And then in episode 9, all the adults go out to celebrate Carmen's pregnancy and they get drunk, including Chosen. And then that's when Sam tells the group what Tori told her and they confront Stingray. And then in episode 10, everybody fights. Silver is exposed and arrested, and Kreese pretends that he is stabbed and walks out of jail. So tell me, what stood out to you at the end in all these episodes? What stood out to you? What was something you appreciated seeing?
You were, as a viewer, you're waiting to see when Tori's victory in the previous tournament was going to be exposed, with Silver paying off the ref. They had to resolve that, and they really brought the tension up really high at the end, where it was, just Miyagi-Do, the underdogs, trying to, win the tournament and also fight to expose the video with not Kreese, with Terry Silver in it. So yeah, I mean, like I said, they did a really good job of tying up so many loose ends and making you feel good about how the series ends. I mean, a lot of, you know, TV series or a season will end with a big, thriller and a big question about, oh, what's going to happen? A cliffhanger, it's like some huge cliffhanger that you just can't wait to watch next season. And then the cliffhanger with, Kreese being alive, that was interesting because I actually was kind of fooled by that, where when he got stabbed in prison,
Ah,
and I was like, I wasn't even thinking about like, oh, he's, is he still alive until he's in I guess the mortuary or wherever, and the doctor's like, what's all this, pudding or something, this red pudding, and
Jello,
yeah, Jello,
Jello.
yeah, and he comes out and escapes, and that was like, okay, that was a really good surprise and a necessary surprise because that opens up the whole thing. Like, Kreese going through his therapy, during in prison, and how it was just funny how he was just, saying what, he thought he was expected to say and show
Yeah.
he's growing, and then the psychiatrist is like, you're not fooling anybody, and then you're like, does he learn his lesson? Does he, you know, ever stop being a villain, and he's the one guy that really can't, I don't know, they have to keep him as a villain for a while longer, I guess, and maybe that would be something that they tie off in season 6, is like how he finally, maybe he'll meet a nice lady to help him settle down or something.
Yeah. So, man, oh, so much happened in the last 3 episodes that I really enjoyed. And yeah, I'm so glad that we were able to see everything that Kreese went through. And I knew when he was talking to the therapist at the very end, I knew he was taking her key card. I knew it. When they showed her walking out and him seeing her, I'm like, he's going to eventually take that to get out. And then I did not think that he was actually stabbed. I knew that he was, but I thought, is this fake? What's he going to do? How they think he's really stabbed and on his deathbed is beyond me. Didn't they take his vitals? I don't know. I just thought that was funny in itself. So, oh, I did like when he was talking. Was he talking to himself, I think, or was he talking to a therapist? I can't remember, but he saw different people in that chair talking back to him. He saw his girlfriend from, when he was young, the one that got killed when he was in the army. He was talking to her. He was talking to young Johnny. I don't know how they got young Johnny to be young Johnny. I'm like, that is so cool. I love that when they're able to use CGI to make him look, that how young he was back in the 80s. I thought that was so cool. He talks to him, he talks to himself. And so I loved having him talk to all those versions of people. So I thought that that was a really cool thing that we got to see. I loved in the preliminary fight for the Sekai Takai. I liked seeing all that. I liked how they brought that Gunther guy around to show him how Cobra Kai works and how Miyagi-Do Eagle Fang works. And so I love when they do that. That's like, it's what my favorite, I look forward to that when you see how both people are training and you're like, oh no, we're going to show you how good it is to train, without all the money and technology is out there, that when you do it like Rocky, like Rocky did. And I love that we had talked about this in the episode or for season 4, how there were so many Rocky references. And so I'm so glad that they actually verbalized it in this episode when Johnny tells Gunther, running up that hill in the snow, it really means something. It really builds strength, right? And how Gunther loves Rocky too. I just loved all of that. I thought that was just a really cool writing. As you were saying, the writing is so good. I liked that Sam got her victory in the fight, although it was against Devon and not against Tori, which kind of sucked, but we at least were able to see Sam fight. So I thought that that was pretty good. And I liked seeing all that. And I also liked how the three guys, the three, Robbie, Miguel, and Eli, how they all were talking to Johnny, and how Johnny was saying, we don't know who to pick. And they said, oh, we already know. We already had our turn. It's Eli. He won the All Valley. He should go. course, I was worried because we had seen what Silver had taught Kenny, and I'm thinking, "Oh my god, he's gonna get the silver bullet or whatever that was to the chest." I'm like, "Oh my god, Eli." So that part was not good to see or easy to see. And of course, we get to see the big epic fight, the one between Chosen and Silver, because I had been, waiting to see this. I didn't know it was going to happen at the end. I kept thinking it was going to happen earlier, but it happens at the end. And Chosen does have the upper hand, and he is, I guess, what would basically be constituted a winner when he has him down, because Silver's all, "Okay, take me. I've always wanted to go on the battlefield," or whatever he says. But then Chosen looks away. And of course, that's when Silver gets him with, across his back. Oh my God. I didn't know. I think he can't die. Somebody can't die on Cobra Kai. But I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I didn't want Chosen to be down. I mean, I know Chosen was intoxicated, but it did bother me. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And just like I didn't like when Silver beat Daniel, but I knew he had to earlier on at Silver's house. So I really appreciated the end. I really appreciated when Daniel and Silver fought, and that Daniel used things from Karate Kid 3, what he had learned from Silver, to beat him. And I love that, because Daniel has always done Miyagi-Do, which has always been the right way. And I think he still uses a lot of Miyagi-Do, but he's also using what he's learned, which is kind of like an eagle fang thing, I believe, right?
Yeah,
In a way.
for sure.
So those are all the things that I loved about the ending of this, and how it did wrap up all these storylines of what is happening with everybody. And I love seeing everybody come together at the end. And, because we do see that they're able to get the broadcast out there. And it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. They were trying to get what happened to Stingray, but at least they were able to see the type of person Silver is. And so I'm glad that they were able to expose him for all of that.
Yeah, good stuff.
So I would like to know, do you have was there a favorite part in this whole season, or are there any other thoughts or tidbits you have?
My favorite part has to be, like I already spoke about, was it's always about Johnny. He's just the guy you just love to he's the lovable loser,
Yeah.
and just seeing him be a Lyft driver, that's just, or whatever, Uber, that stuff is just classic, and him, trying to learn how to use a cell phone, and, like, even what I think it was it season 1 or one of the earlier seasons, where he, they hook him up on Facebook, or, social media,
Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
he just does not have a clue. But yeah, I mean, the way that they tie everything off and leave themselves a little opening to go into a whole another season 6 for those who really want to stick with it, more power to them. So we'll see what happens. I'll probably give it a shot when it comes around, and we'll see how far I go. I mean, some TV series that I watch, I have a tendency to watch, like, maybe, 1, 2, 3, 4 episodes, and then I just can't go any further than that. Or one season, like Stranger Things. I really kind of got into that series, and I watched the whole first series, and then I just couldn't get going on season 2. And then everybody says, "Oh, it just gets so good, in season 4, you gotta
Does.
see it." And it's like,
Oh,
I just, oh gosh,
Grog, come on.
hey, I love to be entertained, but there's so much stuff out there. And, I mean, that's the great thing about your podcast, and what you're doing with Screens and Focus, is that you're providing, a filter for people to kind of, want to decide whether they want to watch something or not, or at least try to help them figure out what's going on. Like, you actually did help me figure out some stuff I hadn't even thought about with this. this whole series, all the characters that you really dive into. So kudos to you for,
Aw,
really being deep about that stuff and passionate about your craft of doing this. So yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for a way to be entertained, or
yeah,
to entertain, other people. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
where I have to divide my time, is how much do I want to spend being entertained versus being an entertainer. And being an entertainer requires so much more work,
yeah,
to
yeah,
have your own YouTube channel. And for me, playing in a band, and every show I put on is like a huge production. And so I grapple with that as a viewer, is that when I'm watching something and it's like, you know, how much do you want to really spend watching some show that really doesn't do it for you anymore?
yeah,
That's the thing
yeah.
about Cobra Kai, is that, all through 5 seasons, I've lasted, and it's like I said, I'm kind of like, I know my own limitations. I'm just kind of wondering whether I can handle it or not. Maybe you'll have me back on a season 6 podcast to see, if I,
Did he last? Did he
did
tune in?
I did I enjoy it? So we'll see what happens.
Oh man, I was thinking so many things as you were talking. Oh, one about Stranger Things. Oh, you have to try it. At least just go watch season 4. Season 4 is epic. It is so good. It is so well written. The acting is so good. It's amazing. So maybe you just skip ahead. And then if you want to go back and fill it in, you can, because season 4 is super good. It's so good. Grog, you have to give it a
That's a
chance.
good suggestion. We'll see what happens. I actually, that's interesting, because I
Yeah.
just can't imagine myself coming into a series like, after it's already been out there.
Yeah.
There's some stuff I'll give it a good chance, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched the first season of Yellowstone this year,
Ah, yeah.
highly rated, and I love Kevin Costner. He's a great actor, and a lot of the stuff that goes on in that series, I guess I kind of identify with, growing old and stuff and dealing with life's challenges. But then I realized when I was watching that series that the stuff that happens to all the different characters, it's like, oh, it's like the maybe that would happen to a person once in their lifetime. And this stuff happens, like they get attacked by a bear. Oh, they see, tourists getting, falling off a cliff, being chased by a bear. It's like, you don't see this stuff like every week. I mean, maybe in Montana you do, I don't know. But it's like, how realistic is it? And that's what kind of got me with Cobra Kai, is that there is a lot of realism to it, and a lot of drama and relationship stuff,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that you can identify with at any age. So, and talking about series, like, I was a big Game of Thrones fan, and, I wanted to quit that series after the Red Wedding. I was just like so
Oh.
upset with that series. But and I think my brother lost it after that, and he gave it up. And then I watched
Oh
it to the
man.
and then now, we're in House of Dragons,
Yes.
and I gotta say, I'm just about ready to just pull the cord on that
Ah,
series. It's like not going where I want it to go,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
I
that's
get that.
maybe a function also of what we want to see in movies. Like, I'm a big sci-fi fan. So I just, I'm always looking for a good sci-fi movie or a good
Yeah.
sci-fi series. And like with House of Dragons, Game of Thrones, it's like you just gotta love the CGI and all that.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like seeing dragons? That's
Right.
all fun.
Yeah.
But the series itself this year is too much like, a relationship type
Yeah.
stuff, like
No, it
upstairs,
is.
downstairs, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's almost turning
I hear
into
you.
a medieval Downton Abbey or whatever. It's like, I can't go there.
Yeah.
too far. So I'm always willing to give it a chance, I guess, but I mean,
Yeah.
I really do kind of like look at certain series like Raised by Wolves, great sci-fi series, and I recommend people watch the first series, and I don't want to go too far into
Yeah, I was
being a
gonna say we can
spoiler.
talk about that when we get to our TV and movie
Okay, let's come
recommendations.
back to that. Okay, so
Let's wrap
okay,
this up. We're wrapping up.
let's wrap it.
Let's
Don't let me
wrap
go
up
on too much.
Cobra Kai. You had talked about your favorite part. So I wanted to bring up, of course, anything for me, Miyagi-Do centered is my favorite thing. But also, I think one of the things I really appreciated was, and you had spoke about this earlier, was Robbie and Miguel's fight with each other, and that, how Johnny, got them to confront each other. The reason I really liked that fight was it was great seeing it physically. For one, I thought they were both good. They're both evenly matched. They both been trained in both Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai and, Eagle Fang. So they have all these abilities. And so, and also basically they're going to be step brothers, right? And so you have all of this going on. And I actually like both of them because neither one's a bad guy. They just have different issues and you like both of them. So I really liked seeing that. I liked how hard Johnny got them to fight, wanted them to get together. Not that he wanted them to fight, but then he's throwing up his hands because he's like, I can't get them to get together. And it took them to fight. But what I really enjoyed was when Miguel could have done something to Robbie because he's thinking back about what Robbie did to him and he held back. And Robbie says, what made you stop? And he says, I can't even remember what he says, but I believe what he was referring to is like he didn't get into karate to hurt people. That's not what he was doing. I just thought their conversation, the way that they had it, I just thought it was really well done and I really liked it. And it was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole series. So I just appreciated seeing them. And I feel like Johnny wished that him and Daniel had done that. If they had just done that, maybe they wouldn't be where they are now. I like when Johnny and Chosen talked and they talked about um, their moments with Daniel and how they concentrated at the time how Daniel had done something to them or impacted them, but it wasn't until they realized it was their own doing and how they perceived it and how they moved forward is what got them to a better place. So I appreciated that conversation also. And then, of course, I love it at the end when Daniel does fight with Silver, like I said, and uses those moves to win. I thought they were really cool. And we kind of already talked about what you hope for season 6 because we're going to see if you're even going to watch season 6. But for me, I'm assuming that they're going to take this to the Sekai Takai fight, right? I think that's where we're going. I believe there'll be a season 6, but I also believe that they're going to wrap up the series. And I think it'd probably be good to wrap it up in season 6,
And there's going
especially
to be a movie too, though.
I heard that it's not related to Cobra Kai. That's what
Oh,
I
okay.
heard. It's a
Hmm.
separate thing. But I'm hoping that we get to see Anthony train. Will Anthony and Kenny fight? I don't know because we don't know where Kenny's headspace is now with everything. I'll be curious to see what happens with Kreese. I'll be curious to see what happens with the baby. There's speculation of Hilary Swank coming, showing up because of her movie. But I don't know. She is in another show. She's a 2-time Academy Award winner. I don't know. Will she show up? Maybe. I think it'd be fun because it would just tie everything up together, even if it's a little bit, even if she doesn't fight. Just it would be great to have a cameo from her. I don't know if they'll do it. So, do you have any parting words on all of Cobra Kai before we wrap this up?
I would just say give it a chance if you haven't watched it. I guess if you haven't watched it and you listen to this podcast, you've already heard everything about it. But no, I mean it's very well done. It was a big surprise, that they resurrected these, this whole, Miyagi verse. And I think it's more going to be more popular now than it ever was back in the 80s. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
good to see, people like Ralph Macchio, and I forget the character Johnny, the actor's name.
William Zabka.
Okay, so that guy, you never saw him, or I don't remember ever seeing him in anything other than Karate Kid. So I was wondering, like, how did this guy make a living for the last 40 years, coming from a huge blockbuster hit movie and maybe being typecast, I guess, a little bit in
Yeah.
some ways,
Uh,
but then coming back as an OG and still not escaping the typecast, just thriving off of it.
yeah.
I love that. That is just the best thing about it, is just he should have his own series, just whatever. They should just do one, or give him his own movie or something. Just, The Adventures of Johnny.
I
So,
know. I know. I love him too. I just think that he's great. And yeah, this could not exist without him, right? It just couldn't.
no, exactly.
Well, not for me and not for what I want to see. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Absolutely. I'm glad to see that the actors actually survived all these years and were resurrected and did something big,
Yeah.
So more power to them.
Well, with what you just said, I was thinking the same thing with Chosen, the actor that portrays him. In fact, I believe, I might be incorrect, but I believe he owns a restaurant and it might be for some reason, I think Seattle, maybe Portland, which you're going to be familiar with, but I
Yep.
think somewhere in that area. I don't know what makes me think that he went into the restaurant business because it was hard because you get typecast, right? Especially at that in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, people weren't able to break out of what they saw you as. Now, currently, because people are producing content now, there's so many options open, right? And to bring this back, it gave them they're all great at in the show, so they could have done it, they just needed the opportunity. So yeah, I'm just really glad to see them all here, and I just think that this show is great. I did enjoy the movies, the first two. So anyway, thanks, Grog, for the conversation on Cobra Kai. I'm so glad that you joined me in on this conversation. But before we close everything up, I just want to know if you have any TV or movie recommendations for everyone.
Oh, okay. Well, and I have to thank you for your recommendation for Whiplash, which was a really good movie. And being a guitar player, I really wouldn't, ever want to kind of jump into a movie about a drummer. But I was skeptical, but it was like, yeah, Diana said watch it, and gave it a shot. And that, was a really entertaining movie, great acting. In terms of series, I'm the one series I cannot escape is Survivor. I mean, for some reason, I'm a big Survivor fan. I've watched that since its inception.
Yeah.
And, I'm always looking for something good. I've been watching Rings of Power. That's been pretty good. I'm not a big Lord of the Ring fans either, but it's kept my interest. And I'm only now discovering Gotham, that now that it's
Ah,
on HBO Max. And I don't know, was that like on another network or something, or do you follow that show? Or
I don't know.
I'm a big Batman fan, so anything having to do with Batman, I'll always give it a chance. So happy to see that stuff.
I'm a huge Survivor fan too. So and I have watched it since the beginning and I love watching it. So I think it's really cool. I'm also watching The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power
Rings of
also.
Power.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, and of Whiplash, I just love that movie. But it is pretty intense. So I think some people, because it has to do with a teacher teaching a student and his way of teaching him isn't the usual way. And so was it necessary for him to become the drummer that he was? I don't know. I don't know, but oh man, that movie takes you for a ride. I just really like it. It's just really well done. And the acting is really well done. So I love that. So for me, I'm watching The Patient, which is on Hulu. It's with Steve Carell and Domhnall Gleeson. It's really short episodes. I feel like they're only like 25 minutes, but it's super intriguing. So Domhnall Gleeson plays a patient of Steve Carell. Steve Carell's a therapist. I don't know if he's a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Yeah, but it's his patient, and he quickly, and I'm not giving anything away by saying this, but I believe, start out with Steve Carell chained to a bed. And so it takes it from there, and he is been kidnapped, and Domhnall Gleeson wants him to give him therapy because he's a serial killer. So it's very it leaves me on the edge of my seat. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm like afraid. It has me gripped, but they're very short episodes. So if you're looking for something short, but very intriguing and kind of scary, you could tune into that. I'm also watching Handmaid's Tale. I'm on the current season that's on Hulu. I'm enjoying that. I'm a Handmaid's Tale fan. And you had already brought up House of the Dragon on HBO Max, and I'm invested in that. I do prefer, of course, Game of Thrones, but I am enjoying this one. So I like it. I do like it. And I've brought this up before, but for you, Grog, if you want to laugh, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's a television series, but you can catch it on other things, and it's Resident Alien. Have you seen this?
I've seen the movie. Isn't that a movie too,
No,
or
no,
no?
no, no. It's a comedy. It's called
Oh,
Resident Alien. It's on
no. Okay.
sci-fi. I really think you'll like it. You will die laughing the very first episode. I think it's only on season 2. It is so funny. It's so funny. So, quick thing, an alien comes down and takes over the body of this doctor. But the actor that portrays him is so good at it, but he doesn't know anything. And so he watches a bunch of Law& and Order to figure out what things are supposed to be. He doesn't understand eating. He doesn't understand so much stuff. It's so funny. And as he's a doctor, he's portraying being a doctor. He has no idea when someone comes to give birth what he's supposed to do. It's hilarious. The first few episodes and continued on now that it's in season 2. I laughed so hard. It's funny. So if you just want to laugh, tune into that series. It's very, very funny.
Awesome recommendation. I will have to
Yeah.
take you up on that.
Yeah. So thank you for yours. Thank you so much for joining me today. I would love for you to share what Grog's World is up to so that people know and to know where they can reach you. I'll put links in the show notes of how to reach you. But do you want to talk about a little bit what you're doing?
I am a musician, and basically live performance is my specialty. I'm a classic rock guitarist. And so everything that was within Grog's World, it started off as just kind of like I don't know, a vanity project, just kind of like I have all these ideas and I'm just an entertainer by, nature. And I wanted to, kind of show a glimpse of my life in terms of being a musician and my style of play. And now that I'm leaving the Bay Area, I'm glad I had a plan in place to start doing audio visual type stuff. And during the pandemic, I thought, someday I'm going to have some, samples of me doing stuff, singing, playing, so that when I do ultimately, move someday, and I'm moving up to Washington and I'm going to be in the Portland, Oregon, and I'm totally kind of reinventing myself up there, just, trying to hook in with the local music scene. And I'm really glad that I took a deep dive into some of the videos I did and some of the editing techniques and using green screens and virtual backgrounds and just kind of like if you watch it, you'd just be like, man, this is kind of really stupid. What is this guy doing? You know, some of the stuff, like as a guitarist, if you want to learn a song, now that we have YouTube, you can just type in the name of a song and you can see somebody playing the song. So there's a gazillion videos out there of people playing cover songs, and they're sitting, in their living room, or they're, on the edge of their bed, singing a song, and you see some of the stuff like 10,000 views, it's like, oh my goodness, this is like crazy that people actually watch this stuff. And of course, I thought, well, I could do better, And so to promote my band, I decided, okay, I'm going to make these videos and put it out there. And so if somebody wants to check me out, and hopefully I'll find a good band to hook on with up there
Yeah.
in Washington and Oregon. But meanwhile, my band Exit 52 has been enjoying a lot of success since the pandemic, and so we're currently playing at the Hard Rock Cafe in San Francisco. And I guess you can put a link for my website x52.net in there, and people, if they want to come see me perform, that's what Grog's World is all about, is just trying to get people to come out and see me perform live. And then also in real life, I'm a financial planner. And so one of the themes that I try to, kind of get across to my clients beyond, money, is the fact that our financial futures are highly tied in with our health, because healthcare is going to be one of the biggest expenses that you're going to have when you retire. So I developed a seminar series as a financial planner called Health and Wealth for Your Future Self. And so I took a deep dive into, health, and especially, being a basketball player, which is really my biggest passion in life, is playing basketball, and all the challenges that I've had to go through being a 60-year-old dude that likes to play basketball. And I don't play in over 50 leagues. I play with kids at the local gym. When I say kids, I'm talking teenagers, college age, 30, 40. Everywhere I go, everybody's a kid to me. Like I'll meet some guys like 43 year
Yeah.
43 years old, and I'm like, hey youngster, how you doing? But so I have developed a lot of, regimens for staying out there on the basketball court. And that's part of the stuff that I share on my YouTube channel is, some of the things that I do, the workouts that I do, and then just being out there, riding my bike as part of my training. And I just can't help but want to share that. And then when I go on vacations, or I go to different locations with my wife Casey, and we're out there riding our bikes, it's an I don't call it an adventure, I call it an e-venture.
Ah,
So I like kind of sharing that stuff and putting a little kind of silly stuff in there. It's amusing to me. I don't know, I think maybe other people might find it amusing. But then when I'm talking with my clients about financial planning and trying to tell people when they retire that, yeah, it's not all about the money, that our financial futures and our happiness is so tied in with our health. And people really, kind of sabotage their health by, totally avoidable things. Why do we have so much diabetes and heart disease, all these preventable diseases, or that are caused by our lifestyle of not eating right, not getting, enough exercise, not getting sleep? And we need to flip that on its
right.
head. We need to be more holistic about our lives and think about our future selves. And so that's something that I want to develop, doing financial planning content on YouTube is ultimately where I want to go. I want to put together some, financial planning series that covers stuff that everybody should know, how big health is related
Yeah.
to your wealth and your happiness in
Yeah.
life. So I guess I would say that Grog's World, the YouTube channel, is just kind of my playground for this stuff, just for me to learn how to do video, audio editing, and put it out there. And one day I'm going to grow up and I'm going to make it into a serious thing, so that somebody can actually get some knowledge out of. So that's what I'm doing with this stuff now. It's just being an entertainer, and just that's what I do. I love to entertain people, and ever since I was a kid. So this is where I am now. We can all have our own private TV channel, if you will.
Yep.
So
Yep.
why not?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? I love that. I love all of that. So I have listened to you play and you're extraordinary and I just love it. And I will be
Thank you.
visiting you at Pier 39. And you have also, because my sons have all played instruments, you have helped them become better players and it have collaborated with them. So I've seen it firsthand, people. So check out Grog's World. And if you get the opportunity, it would be great for you to see him live. And if not, just go to Grog's World, right? Or go to Exit 52. All right, we will have that in the show notes. Okay, well, that's our show. Thanks for tuning in. We are grateful you tuned in, and we hope something we said today resonated with you, gave you a chuckle, some happiness, some positivity, or inspiration. Please go to screensinfocus.com and subscribe to our website to stay up to date, and tell a friend. We would love more members of our TV club. You can also check out our blog for TV and movie recommendations. Next episode will be on The Walking Dead, season 11. Oh my God, we're on the home stretch, the last episodes. We'll see you next time. Bye.